So last night, me and my wife watched the documentary by Kirk Franklin called Father's Day. It's about, he's documenting when he met his father, his real biological father, for the first time. Very moving, very powerful. If you have not seen it, I want to strongly encourage you to watch it, especially if you're a man. But I had some thoughts and feelings that came up for me that I felt like I wanted to share because I believe I can help other men look at their situation in a way where they can get freedom from what's been holding them back. So I want to share with you my thoughts about the documentary. I can identify with a lot of Kirk Franklin's story, right? Truth is, I've never known the love of a man, meaning my father, my grandfather on both sides, uncles. I've never known what it feels like to have a man love you, to have the man that's supposed to love you. I don't know what that's like, right? I do believe that my dad did love me in his own way. My dad who raised me, I believe he loves me and he loved me in his own way, but it wasn't in a way that I could feel it, right? And truth is, when I preached his eulogy a couple of years ago, that's when I really learned that he loved me. But while I was a kid and while he was on the planet, I didn't feel it. Okay. And I'm not saying that's his fault. I'm not putting blame anywhere, but I did, right? We never had an emotional connection. I don't have father-son memories. The thing is, my mother told me that he wasn't my biological father when I was about 10. And so then throughout life, I never wanted to meet my biological father. I never wanted to meet him because my thing was, how are you going to do life? How are you doing life on a planet where you know you got a whole son in the world and you're not trying to find him, right? That was my mindset. But I eventually changed and I did end up meeting my biological dad at 40, but I still didn't get the father part that I do hope Kirk gets, okay? Fathers are important because they are the ones who give you your identity, right? They're the ones who's supposed to mirror back to you who you are. When Kirk, there was a point in the documentary when Kirk had a conversation with the man who he thought was his father. And he said to him, because I didn't have you to tell me who I was always the most insecure man in the room. Those are powerful words, right? I completely understand that. When you have father issues, you are going to have identity issues. You're going to have identity issues when you have father issues. And truth is, as a therapist and as a preacher, I understand that this identity issue has already been addressed by God. Like, I understand that. I understand that we have to allow God to tell us who we are. But even though I teach it and I believe it, I too still struggle with the lies that my childhood told me about me. See? And when people watch this powerful documentary, I hope they're able to see and understand that the human experience is the human experience, right? There are no superhumans on the planet. Marvel, DC, all of them, that's not real. There are no superhumans on the planet, only regular humans. And when people are able to attain a certain level of fame and success, we mistakenly forget they're regular humans too. They're regular human beings with regular flaws and fears like the rest of us, right? You may be thinking, how could someone like Kirk, how could he be so successful on the outside and so broken on the inside? Because he's a regular human. It's strange to me. It's strange to me that humans will judge your behavior and label you based on what they see in your behavior, while all the time knowing they're a human being too. What I mean by that? Meaning, like, they know that they have behaviors that they wish they didn't have, and they know that those behaviors come from what has happened to them, right? And how their life has gone, as opposed to them just, I'm just selfish or cold or mean or addicted or whatever. Like, they know their behavior comes from somewhere. But when they look at you, they just give you the label without the grace of knowing, well, something had to happen, right? And I'm not talking about for excuses. It's just interesting and strange to me that a human being would treat another human being like that, knowing we got the same experience. You just acting like you don't, right? And because none of us want to be seen as the ugly person we think we are, we learn to hide. Yeah, we create what we call in psychology a false self. And it is from this false self that all of our dysfunctional behavior comes. Yeah. But remember this, no one chooses to hide for no reason. Like, no one chooses to hide for no reason. Something happened to that child. Okay? Something happened. There are people, I've come across men and women, but really men. I've come across men who, they want to say something like, stop blaming your childhood, stop making excuses, like, just be a man. Your childhood, like, that was a long time ago and it's not affecting you now. True, it was a long time ago. And true, you can't use it as an excuse. But the reality is, when people say that, if they were as whole as they say, they wouldn't be saying what they're saying, right? They're living in denial, because if they were as whole and healthy as they actually are projecting, then they'd have more compassion instead of judgment. When Kirk got the news, when he first got the news of the DNA test, man, I felt his pain, right? I felt his pain and his confusion, right? Like, he didn't even have words. All he could say was, what? What? Like, I get it. That was last night when I watched it with my wife. But when I watched it again this morning, I cried. Why? Because when I watched it the second time, all I could see was the little child shocked and confused. I didn't even see a grown man. I just saw a kid. And I got a heart for children. And it was gripping, right? I've been there. And to be honest, what I found in watching the documentary, what I found is that what I thought I had healed, I actually was running away from. And I'm sharing that part with you because maybe that's part of your story, right? See, because I didn't feel the pain and I knew that I needed to find my identity in God, right? I said that before. Like, I know my identity is in Christ. So I know who I am. So I thought, and I don't feel the pain, so I must be healed. But what I realized was I wasn't healed. I was hiding. And watching the documentary helped me see that, because some things came up that I thought were healed, right? And I appreciate the fact that Kirk was wise enough to get therapy throughout the years, right? Most men, especially us Black men, will not seek therapy for the trauma we faced in childhood. Most of us don't seek therapy. And most of you who are struggling in your marriage, it is because of unresolved childhood issues. Yeah. The scene when Kirk went to meet his biological father for the first time was also really powerful, right? Rick, who is his biological dad, he didn't even know he had a son. Kirk's 53. He didn't even know he had a son. When he read the results of the DNA test, he broke down. And the thing that grabbed my heart probably the most was when his biological father said, well, two things. One was when his biological father said, if I had been aware of any possibility like this at all, I would have pursued the truth about it. To me, that's sending a message to Kirk like, hey, if I had known you existed, I would have come after you. That means I did not intentionally harm you. I didn't know. And then the second one, when they hugged, oh yeah, I had to fight back tears. And now this was last night when I was watching it. I had to fight back the tears. Why? Because I was watching it with my wife. And, we got to be tough. That's a whole different story. And trust me, there's a story behind that, why men can't cry, right? But I can only imagine what it felt like for both of them in that moment, right? Can you imagine? This is my 53-year-old son that I'm hugging. This is my father that I've been longing for all of my life that I'm hugging. Powerful. And then one of the saddest parts of the documentary is Kirk's biological mother's response, right? Her response to the DNA test was denial. Like she just flat out denied it. I told my wife, it is so unfortunate when people's pain is so deep that it blinds them to reality, even when it's in black and white. She could not accept the fact that she got it wrong for 53 years because she thought and still does believe that the guy Kirk thought was his dad was his dad. She won't accept the DNA results, right? And here's what he told her. He said, because you didn't know how to love, it made me not know how to love. That is so true and powerful. Like I say it all the time. If you learn it wrong, you are going to live it wrong, no matter what it is, right? People think because your life doesn't look like it's in shambles, then you should be good. People wonder, how could this be? Kirk is so successful, right? He's so talented. Here's the beauty of how God works. All right. When Nehemiah went back to Jerusalem to rebuild the walls, right? The scripture says he did not use new stones. He used the burnt stones, the stones that were on the ground that was burnt. He used those stones to rebuild the wall, right? In the same way, God will use the burnt stones to bring him glory. What do I mean by that? Meaning, your life, so it's not, God don't need you to be perfect for him to use you to bless other folk, right? As insecure and unsure as Kirk Franklin is, on the inside, God has used him tremendously in powerful ways to affect the lives of millions of people, all while carrying the stuff that he's carrying inside. I talk about myself as a successful therapist. I've helped hundreds of marriages. I've saved hundreds of marriages. I've helped many a men find their authentic self, all while still dealing with my own childhood issues. And the point that I'm making is that's the amazingness, the awesomeness of God, that in our broken state, he can still take us and use us for great things in the earth. But then people mistakenly think, oh, well, if he can do that, then he must be good. He's better than me. You may be successful in your own right. Yeah, if you're a man listening to me, you may be successful in your own right. But don't let your outward success trick you into thinking that your inner world is good. Don't fall into that trap. For years, I had no idea that I had major childhood issues. I really didn't. It wasn't until I went to therapy probably around 41 that my whole life changed. And I realized, whoa, my life looked like it was in pieces. But on the inside, because on the outside, it looked fine, right? Another powerful moment in the documentary was when Kirk went to address his son, his estranged son. You may remember earlier, I don't know if this was this year, last year, whenever, but a phone call was leaked between him and his son. And there was a whole lot of drama behind that. So him and his son, they've had issues, right? And but he went to his son's apartment to reconcile with him. Well, to tell him about, the biological dad, your granddad. He went to tell him, and that scene was really that gripped me in a different way because I have children, right? I'm not estranged from any of my children, but I was almost from my daughter. When you are half a man and half a mystery, it will affect the way you parent. Yeah, it will directly affect the way you parent. What I've learned about us humans is that for the most part, all of us do what we know how to do. So if you grew up not being loved, then how are you going to know how to love your children? If you grew up being emotionally neglected, how are you not going to do that to your child? How do you love your child? And you do, like you'll give your life for them. But how do you love them in action? If you were never shown that, how do you love them in a way where they can feel it, understand it, and trust it? You got to learn it. Because if you didn't learn it in childhood, you got to learn it somewhere. For me, last week or week before last, I'm not sure, not a little while ago, I just sent my daughter a text. And I sent her a text telling her in my study, because I've been studying lately marriage, men's roles, women's roles in marriage, and I'm studying scripture. And what I told her was, I recently discovered something about God's design for men that I was not aware of. And because of my lack of awareness, and I'm giving y'all the Cliff Note version, right? Because of my lack of awareness, I may have treated you like you were one of the boys, and you're not. And so I said some other things, and I asked her to forgive me. But my point is this. Being good in one area does not mean you're going to be good in all areas, right? I'm an amazing therapist. I may not be amazing in some other stuff, right? And if you are a father, you must make the investment into healing your inner child, your inner world, because your children are and will continue to pay for your childhood wounds. I'm going to say that again. If you are a father, you must make the investment to heal your inner world, because your children will continue to pay for. Your children, they probably already paid, and they will continue to pay for your childhood wounds. We got to do better. And I'm going to end with this. First, if you are a man and you know that you are struggling with identity issues, find you some help, right? Find you somebody that you can work with. And if you have children that you need to reconcile with, it doesn't matter what they did. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that in general. Obviously, I don't know your specific story, but if you have children that you need to be reconciled with, do that. Like that's the loving thing to do. Okay, if it's possible, do that. Now, I want to end with this. This song is not really a song. It's kind of like an interlude from Kirk Franklin's Hero album. And I remember when I heard it back when it came out, it resonated with me. But even more so now that I've watched the documentary. And basically it just says, there's a hole in my soul that won't heal. And there's a rage and a pain even now I still feel. Even though I'm a man, still I don't understand. But that's what happens when you don't have a father. I want to encourage you to do the inner work that needs to be done so that you can have the life God intends for you to have. What kind of life is that? A life of freedom. Freedom from the pain of rejection. Freedom from the pain of emotional neglect. Freedom from living in the past so you can live forward and love your children the way God intended. Why? Why? Because they didn't ask to come here. When you get free, you can help them get free. But the way you get free is by accepting the freedom God has already given you. Because whom the Son sets free is free indeed. Y'all take care.